All right, I guess we're on. Let's see if the microphone works. Seems like we're scrolling a little bit. So, what we're trying out tonight is the recording studio. You can see the mountain is actually a little bit behind. Oh, over there, a little bit behind me. It's starting to creep around. It will be coming back around a little bit. But my name is Chris with Hazmat and Rescue. And this is a test of YouTube Live with the recording studio, checking the audio, checking the video, checking all of the graphics that I have to get prepared for the future when we have potential incidents and critical news events that are breaking news. I've seen this a lot on YouTube with people doing weather events, like what is happening up in the Northwest right now in December. They're keeping good live reports of what's going on, whether it be with their cell phone or whether it be with other digital devices. And that's what I'm trying to flex with this recording studio is to be able to get out breaking news of hazardous materials incidents as they occur. I'm not going to give you the talking head news report information. I want to give it to you as a background, as a hazmat technician, as a fire inspector, and a fire investigator. Now, it's been a month since the Weatherford incident, and I did try this just a day or two afterwards when we were getting this studio set up initially. But now that we have a few reports that came on out, I thought I would try it again. So thank you very much to the EPA and the NTSB for getting at least some preliminary reports set up. So once again, this incident happened not on November 17th, but on November 12th. So this happened at about 10 o'clock at night at a Holiday Inn Express. And let's see here. I'm just going to pump up and I'm just going to jump onto the map right now. This happened in Weatherford, Oklahoma, not Weatherford, Texas, Weatherford, Oklahoma. And of course, my Starlink is being very slow and cranky as we go through this. Let's see. Oh, look at that. I can't even add any of this stuff right now, but we do have a few of the maps popped up. I'll try again. There it is. So I want to make sure that we're all aware of where this incident happened and the significance to it as a hazmat responder, as a firefighter, as a fire investigator, as a general responder in any field, or just even the public that just wants to know what's going on. So as we go away from the PHRT International Headquarters and we shoot on over to Oklahoma, as you can see, Weatherford is right there. It is on this map. Um, Pretty much all of Oklahoma is on this map as it takes a few seconds to load up. So the central area right here, we're in Oklahoma City, and we can go south to Dallas Fort Worth on Interstate 35. And this is pretty much in the heartland of America right here. We're taking a look at Interstate 40 going through Oklahoma City right there. And you see there's Weatherford. I think it's about 2.5 hours, depending on the speed that you want to head on out there to get out to Weatherford. And you can see the population mass of Oklahoma City there versus Weatherford. There's a lot more urban, dense environment in Oklahoma City compared to the community of Weatherford, which means that these groups here, they do not have a hazmat team. So our responders here are just operations trained. When I say just, I'm not saying it in a bad way. Not saying that in a bad way in any way, shape, or form. I teach hazmat operations, and let's see here, Weatherford. This looks like Weatherford, Oklahoma here, and operations is the base of all of it. You can't be a good technician without being a good being a good operations responder. So you can already see it right here. The city of Weatherford. And I wanna make sure I don't confuse it. Route 66 gives me a clue that I think this is correct right here. Yep, this is it. So, whether they don't have red fire engines, that's a problem already. But no, let's see here. From the fire chief, honored to represent our department, and the individuals that protect our 12,000 plus citizens from fire and disaster every day. 24-hour service with 20 paid and 15 volunteer personnel. All firefighters are trained to IFSAC Firefighter 1, and to be trained to IFSAC Firefighter 1, that means that you are trained to hazmat awareness and operations, and it says it right there. They're also EMTs, and they also have rescue technicians, so good on them. But with this, we see 2 engines, a quint, a 100-foot aerial platform, 4 brush pumpers, 2 tankers, and a 6x6 UTV. So minimal staffing, but for the amount of population that is adequate and that's appropriate. The difficulty comes down to when you get a critical incident like an anhydrous ammonia tanker, like what we saw right here. That's the tanker that ended up leaking. So on November 12th, this MC330 ended up releasing its contents. Now, in hazmat operations, we talk about our DOT and our MC variants of what these tankers are. Every firefighter and most law enforcement officers, every law enforcement officer actually, all has to be trained to NFPA 470 standards. And we're taught within the 2020 emergency response guide the identification of this. You see the rounded end on it. You can see that it's got the big white color and it looks like it's one big thermos bottle. This gives everybody a clue out there that this is a pressure vessel. It's most likely carrying a liquid inside that wants to be a gas. And it's a liquefied gas. And the reason it stays a liquid is because of the pressure that's put within it. Anhydrous ammonia has a vapor pressure of about 8.2 to 8.4 atmospheres. I'm just doing this one by memory. I'm not going to pull up a nice pocket guide because I have a lot of other tabs pulled up. So it's a liquid inside and it's going to come out as a gas. And when we take a look at the NTSB report, we will see right there that yes, this was a liquid that was dripping out from the bottom of the manway right here, and it was vaporizing. Anhydrous ammonia has a massive expansion ratio. When it turns it from a liquid to a gas, it expands, I think it's 806 to 1. I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's a very, very large number for this. It's larger than propane. Most people know about propane, and that has an expansion ratio of 270 to 1. My firefighters in the house, they know that water expands 1700 to 1. That's one of the ways we extinguish fires. But anhydrous ammonia, when it goes out as a liquid and it expands into a vapor, that is over 800 to 1 expansion ratio. And this manway, you can see the fire extinguisher there. You can see the handle. That gives us a very, very big clue right there that this was right there at the bottom of the tank. So the entire contents of this tank were going to leak on out, and they were going to leak out in a very, very dangerous fashion, which affected the public. So let's take a look here from the NTSB report. About 9:16 local air gas cargo tank transporting anhydrous ammonia experienced a leak while parked at the Weatherford Holiday Inn Express. And let's go over to the location once again. The Holiday Inn Express, as we zoom in, is right about here. As I get a little bit more internet and we finally start getting in there, we have a lot of product coming out in one of the more urban areas of Weatherford. So right here we have this strip mall right here that has, I think, a Harbor Freight and a few other stores. I think this is where they were staging all their stuff. The truck was right there. That's the picture that we just saw. That's where the truck was. And they said that night that the wind was going from the south to the north at a clip between 3 and 6 miles per hour at 53 degrees Fahrenheit. But you have to understand, here's some of the considerations to think about when it comes down to this anhydrous ammonia. When it's coming out at the temperature of the product, and it's probably getting close to ambient temperature of that 56 degrees Fahrenheit that we see right there. So the anhydrous ammonia is probably coming out at 56 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's boiling. Now, when we think about boiling, boiling typically is we're making something hot and it's going to start boiling like water. When something is boiling because of the vapor pressure, it's going to do an auto refrigeration technique. And auto refrigeration is as the vapors evaporate, the product gets colder. That's how we stay cool is from sweat, right? From sweating, when I end up starting to sweat, that evaporation from my forehead, it cools me down because the liquid on my forehead evaporates and that removes the heat, latent heat right there. So anhydrous ammonia, as it's dripping out of this tank, it's boiling very rapidly, and that is going to start cooling it down. And that is going to get it down to its boiling point of negative 27 degrees Fahrenheit. So, this is a huge factor that we need to consider on events and incidents like this because now the vapor is cold. Cold vapors go down, right? Anhydrous ammonia has a vapor density of 0.59. Sometimes some other resources say that it's zero point 0.6, but 0.59 that means it's going to be lighter than air. If it's 1, that's air. Anything less than a 1 goes up. Kids on a seesaw. I've got my 100-pound fifth grader right here. That's air. If I have a 300-pound fifth grader, a little hyper obese kid, boom, it's going down. That's what my gasoline vapors do. That's what chlorine does. That's what propane does. But anhydrous ammonia has a vapor density of 0.59. 100-pound kid, I got a little 59-pound kid here. They can't play seesaw, so it goes up. But it's a relative gas density. That's the definition from NIOSH. And I love the term that NIOSH uses of relative gas density because that helps us understand it is relative and it's going to be relative to temperature. So that anhydrous ammonia gets cold, and as it gets cold, even though it wants to float, it's going to start going with the topography around the area. So let's see if we can take a look at terrain here. I haven't even looked at this yet. As you can see, it's all perfectly flat. Okay, there we go. We zoom out a little bit. We're still loading up some layers here with the Google Maps as we're looking at it. It is relatively flat there because it's Oklahoma. But nevertheless, with gravity and other things like that, where are we going to put the freeways? We're typically going to have those either elevated or trenched down. And for this one, it's most likely going to be trenched down. We see some elevation changes here. And actually, I ended up staying at a trailer park. My family lives in Weatherford, and one of my family members was actually evacuated from this incident. So I stayed at a trailer park, I think a little bit further east of here, but you can start seeing some of the terrain features, mostly flat here in this area, but the freeway is going to be a little bit lower and it could travel down into this gully right here. Even though the winds are going to be pushing to the north, and this is where we jump to our next tab. When I go into Ceres or plume modeling software that goes off of Cameo, which is a free software, Cameo right here, and I input some stuff. I'm not going to say it's perfect right here. I did a little bit of fudging right here to get some numbers. If you use the weather conditions that they had for that night, we have an evacuation that goes north up to 2 miles with our exposure guidelines right there for the suspected public. So that is a correct statement, but a more correct statement is going to be not that one. Let's see if I can get to it right here. It's gonna be this one over here. As you can see right there. There we go. Oh, yeah. I'm looking. I didn't even put the tab right there. Boom. I'm sitting there talking. I need to learn how to. That's why this is a practice right here. So here's my plume model right here. I'm sitting there talking. I didn't even put the Google Maps on. So let's go back. Here's the terrain. I'm just sitting there showing all that stuff. Here's the terrain. As I zoomed out, we have a goalie right here. And that goalie is going to be where that anhydrous ammonia is. So from my Ceres, that's what the Plume software, when I type it up, comes up, and it takes a look at. We end up having a northern flow, but that's not what happened. The cloud ended up going a little bit towards the freeway around here, and it did start going into this gully a little bit as well. I'm not going to say exactly. I haven't read everything on it, but I do know that there were patients that were evacuated, that were transported. We ended up having over 50 people transported, and including some cops and firefighters that were injured from this. We might talk about that here in a little bit. So I ended up fudging some of the numbers just because of the weather. I dropped the speed down, the wind speed down significantly, and now we start seeing probably a little bit more accurate model. But this is just a really quick clue for my technicians out there that our plume model is not the be all end all. It's not going to tell us everything we need to know. So sometimes you do have to fudge numbers in this imperfect world that we live in. So let's carry on with the NTSB. After the incident, the cargo tank underwent standard cleaning and purging. While on scene, the NTSB examined the surrounding area, the cargo tank itself, surveillance video. They're doing a full report. So they will be coming out with a report eventually, but let me scroll on up. I'm going to give you the report number. There it is right there, HMD 26FR001. But I do like this interesting point right here. Anhydrous ammonia is a hazardous material used for fertilizers. Absolutely. Manufacture chemicals, synthetic fires, refrigerants, cleaning solutions. Its hazard class is a 2.2 poison gas. When shipped domestically, 2.3 when shipped internationally. That's an important thing. When we teach our first responders, it gets that DOT 2.2 placard, a non flammable gas. But when it's shipped internationally, it has to be a 2.3 because it is a poison. And the reason for that is the ease of shipping, not to make it loose and off the wheel. There's a lot of protections and precautions that take place with this. But when you add that 2.3 poison gas, you make it so restrictive that this product, which is a heavily shipped product and a heavily used product in agricultural, it would increase the food stock price and the price of their fertilizer exponentially, which would be prohibitive to everything. Now, really quickly, as an incident commander, some of the things that I want to think about here, and we take a look at this, the isolation distance. Let's see if we can take a look here. This is the isolation evacuation distance that they ended up placing. This is from KOCO News. When they put this up, Davison, Maine, and when I did the measurements for this is about where the Holiday Inn is, the wind was going a little bit to the north and it was starting to go to the east. The weather or the terrain is showing to going that way. And out of an abundance of caution, we had to go down to Kansas and Lyle. So this goes really well with the plume models that I popped up. It went really well with my ERG references. The ERG states 1 mile. And of course, when we get into anhydrous ammonia, you will find out that this is a highlighted green gas. And if it's not on fire, that sends our responders to table 1 in the back of emergency response guidebook. And then you get even further information for a large leak such as this. It sends you to table 3, which is my six most commonly shipped toxic inhalation hazards. And it's number 1 on the hit list because it's so commonly shipped. And out of an MC331 or an MC330 in this case, we do have evacuation distances very similar to what they set up. So I think they did a really good job on that. But back into the concept here of it's going to take a long time to get a hazmat tech. Their local CST, I think it was the 53rd, I can't remember exactly, but the CST team out of, in essence, Oklahoma City, I think they're out of Norman, they ended up responding, and Oklahoma City Fire responded on over. So that is a very long response. So that they actually got there rather quickly to be able to help out. So once again, this is just a reminder that this is an operations game, without a doubt. It's going to take a long time for the techs to get there to mitigate the incident. So beforehand, we have to get those operations level responders, like we saw from Weatherford, to come on in. Let me pop up something here. You can see IFSAC certified hazmat techs. I'm going to jump on over here and take a look at the Weatherford incident here. There it is. All right, so scrolling down, they have the tanker truck right there. It was parked in a hotel parking lot. Um, a lot of people say, "Well, they shouldn't be doing it. This is a toxic inhalation hazard. This is bad, bad stuff." Like, well, yeah, but there's no fire code. There's no federal EPA standard. There's no state standard that does not allow them to park in conditions like that. The truck driver most likely was at the end of his hours of service, and he had to stop. And if we go back to the beginning, if we roll on up, he doesn't have a sleeper. So he's got to stop. He's got to reset his hours. He's probably under contract, and they probably had a contract there. Notice that he put the cones out. Notice that he was as far away from the parking lot as possible, but he's still on property. They may have had an agreement with the Holiday Inn, or he may have talked to them beforehand. So all of this was up to code and all approved. I know the what ifs. What do you mean? What do you mean? This area is densely populated, not Oklahoma City densely populated, but we are in urban and residential areas. There are houses right next door. And of course, that's where people scream, "What about the public? What about the public?" I get it. I get it. But these truckers have to have somewhere to sleep. If we're going to limit their hours, we have to have somewhere for them to park. And tanker trucks like this typically don't have sleepers. So what are we going to do? gonna let him drive more beyond his hours of service, which is now dangerous, and that's been a national conversation with CDL operators across the United States. Just today, there was a multiple fatality incident in my state with a CDL driver. So we don't want them driving beyond their hours of service, so we have to park them. Well, where are we going to put them? Well, we got to put them somewhere. Okay, well, what about putting him in a rest area? Well, there's a lot of rest areas that do not allow that. And once again, because he doesn't have a sleeper. So the situation itself just compounded. But if we go back to, there's my 330 right there, that bottom manway, it's a liquid leaking out. It's going to release as a vapor. This is a significant event, 1.5 mile evacuation, not the 53rd, the 63rd CST responded. I apologize for anybody with the 63rd CST for the misnaming right there, because they ended up doing a really good job from what I saw. Emergency manager lifted the evacuation at 9 a.m. on the 13th. So this is a 12-hour evacuation. So I think, once again, very prudent. They did air monitoring with Toxay Pros. So I'm guessing that they probably used the PID, the photoionization detector, because the ionization potential of ammonia is less than 10.6. 9.8, I think. Doesn't matter. It's less than 10.6. So there's these AEGLs that we already saw. So there's some really good information here as well. Oh, look at those heroes at work. The EPA team is discussing with the PRP contractor. Nice stuff. Nice stuff. We gotta talk. We gotta get the head shed there. We gotta have some discussions. So no, good job. So this is Jennifer Polk, the on-scene commander coordinator. Good stuff with them. NRC number. So they did report the release right there with the NRC. So we will be able to identify with that. Let me pop on over. I didn't do this before. I should. Let's see if the release was recorded, if it's in the records right now. I got the EPA, and there's the EPA report. So, the Coast Guard, when we have a spill of hazardous materials, they do have to report that release to the EPA and to the Coast Guard, respectively, and they track those spills and give us good mapping procedures and profiles for that. My state has a really good map for the oil spills and the incidents that have happened. So we have the MC331, I'm going to believe. This is on the opposite side of that strip mall, and this is the updated rig that they transferred any of the remaining product into. So this one is the interesting thing I saw with this, and you can't get too far into it, but you see that there's an anhydrous ammonia placard, and then there's a corrosive placard. Good on them. If I close this out and go up to the top, there's only one placard on the original container. So that was up to them to decide to do that. That was just an interesting thing. The ammonium hydroxide, they did do a little bit of damming and diking. A lot of water was flown. This looks like the suspect, the victim vehicle right here. And the leak is right behind my coordinator right there, my DOT investigator. And there's the leak right there. You saw it with the NTSB report. This is that leak. You can see it was right behind that dude right there. He is blocking our view because he's doing his investigation. But there's that one single placard, good old UM 1005. Ammonium hydroxide, we're trying to flush any of the residual, because when ammonia leaks out, ammonia per NIOSH is not a corrosive gas. Per the DOT or Transport Canada, it is a corrosive toxic gas. But the gas itself isn't corrosive. But when it mixes with water, your wet and sticky areas, it will make ammonium hydroxide, which has a pH of about 11.6. So it is a very basic solution. So they're trying to dilute this ammonia down, and this is what I love about the EPA right here. They are totally in for the solution to pollution. Absolutely is dilution. So take it from the EPA, everybody. The solution of pollute. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's nothing they could do. anhydrous ammonia is soluble by 34%, which means it's absolutely soluble. It is going to turn into ammonium hydroxide. If I sprayed 100 gallons in, I would get 134 gallons of ammonium hydroxide onto the ground. So they are trying to dilute this, which is a very ineffective method, but it's all they've got. That's the only tactic that they can do. So acids and bases are very, very difficult to dilute. You need a lot of water. So they just let that hydrant flow on up. I'm betting they were probably working on the water district as well. Let's jump on over. I'm going to pop up this good old Facebook's video here. This Facebook's here with Oklahoma City Fire. They ended up getting a really good video. I'm guessing this video was from Weatherford Fire Department. Let's see if it plays, because this is a really good one. We can see the liquid leaking out to gas. And look how much it's rushing. That's that expansion ratio. That is that massive expansion ratio. And it looks right now like this is leaking towards the hotel. So it's spraying out in that force, and it's coming out at over 80 psi up to 100 psi. You can see that jet right there, and it's flash boiling. That's why there's so much. These guys are spraying water on it to turn that gas into a liquid to try to reduce that plume. But you only have so much water. That's the difficulty. Yeah, you can look at fire flow, but when you look at a tanker that big, you're looking at thousands of gallons, and you're going to need to be flowing tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, if not up to 1 million gallons of water with master streams, unstaffed and unmanned. I will tell you right now that these firefighters, I saw a different picture in a video. I think that they were wearing bunker gear and SCBA. Bunker gear is not the appropriate protective gear for anhydrous ammonia. With that being said, life safety plays critical. We are in an urban, dense environment. Risk a lot to save a lot. If you can make a calculated risk and you can make sure that you are staying out of the plume, I'm not going to walk into that cloud. But here's the biggest thing. The worst way that ammonia gets us is with respiratory, with inhalation. Uh, when I was getting prepped up for this live stream, I was watching some reports, and one of the drivers that was on Interstate 40, she was driving, and she was overcome by the anhydrous ammonia fumes. Uh, that's critical. Hey, turn your car on recirc. That's what I'm gonna say. Turn your HVAC on recirc when you're driving down the road with this stuff. But of course, I'm just being light on this one. But it is a serious issue. I have done ammonia training. Oh, everything just crashed out on the laptop there. So we'll just jump on back here. I have done ammonia training, and I have been in the open air where I've been able to walk away from the smell, but it permeated through my skin. So my heart goes out to the people that were affected. Yeah, I try to make light on some things, but no, this is a very serious toxic inhalation hazard, an IDLH of 300 parts per million. And if I'm driving through a cloud like that, I don't know, that I may not see, and I just start smelling that pungent ammonia, where are you gonna go? So, absolutely, Weatherford did a great job trying to take care of this, but, I feel really bad for the police department and the fire department for having the respiratory distress. But for some of those last considerations, operations, if you're going to do something like that, make sure it's to save a large amount of life, because you're hanging out there right now. You are going against the recommendations from the manufacturer on what your PPE should be. Incident commanders, call for help and call for help early. It looks like they did. They got a hold of the 63rd CST. They ended up getting Oklahoma City Fire Department hazmat team out there. Great job on that. And of course, we ended up working well with emergency managers, doing push notifications, shelter in place, and evacuation. And as I was reading this report and getting the news reports, they had shelter and relocation facilities with the community pitching in. So great job on all of that. For the technicians, this is where we get into the chemical protective gear, and we have to take a look at what type of plug-in and patching we might even be able to do, whether it be a freeze patch or if we're going to try to adjust that valve. I'd be really cautious about adjusting that manhole cover because it's just held together with two bolts and a loose cap. We are not technicians on that equipment. We are technicians in hazardous materials. So do not adjust things and mess with things that you can't close back up, because then you're in really big trouble. trouble, turning a big leak into a massive and catastrophic leak. So we got to be cautious with that. Sometimes it's just a loser, and we're just going to have to wait this stuff out. For all the investigators on scene, thank you very much for the reports and all the information. I look forward to hearing more, and hopefully, when we get more definitive information from the federal authorities and the state and local authorities, I might be able to pop on more and talk a little bit more about this event and get some of these little buttons that I'm learning here set up. There we go. We finally got it set up again and opened back up. But no, guys, thank you very much. Hopefully this did work out. Hopefully the audio worked and we didn't get muffled out by the desktop audio, because last time we absolutely did. So I appreciate it. Stay safe out there, guys. Good night.